We're going to leave that up for just a minute. Thank you. This is fun. I just want to say before I introduce myself and we start, thank you for the work that you do and the ministry that you do. We need you. The church needs you. I think ministry oftentimes can be a thankless job. I think Jonathan and his team, I've only been here a half hour and been in communication with them via text and email, but I think they're doing an outstanding job, especially compared to a lot of dioceses of hospitality. I've heard they're moving the meetings around, which is very friendly for people, as the diocese can be a little scattered and rural. The coffee is good. I mean, what Catholic event is this? This is amazing. So thank you for what you do. It can be a thankless job. And please keep doing it if God is calling you until He stops, because it is such a blessing to have you. I love all of you and people who work in ministry. So as he said, my name is Jonathan Blevins. I'm a director of Evangelization and Formation at St. James in Arlington Heights. Has anyone heard of Arlington Heights? Oh, good. A few of you. Okay. Well, this is great. I just moved to Palatine, which is right next door to that, a few months ago with my wife and 2 kids. My wife and I just celebrated 6 years. And one of the things I would recommend, and it's never too late to start, I just decided our year 1 of our anniversary to surprise her and just take her on a trip and not tell her any details of where we were going to go or what we were going to do. And then while we were like in the middle of this anniversary weekend, we were having a conversation and she was like, "This is really fun. Like, I had no idea what's coming next. We should do this every year." And I was like, "Hold on. I can't do this every year because I'm not that creative, but we could take turns." And then she's like, "That's a great idea." So every year we take turns surprising each other. The only rule is it has to be within 3 hours. And I'm like, this is going to get old after like 10 years. And it can't be the same place twice. So we just celebrated 6 years and we went to Galena, Illinois, which I had never been to, and I got a pedicure. It was incredible. I highly recommend to the fellas. Okay, it was very awkward, but it was a life-changing experience. And I do believe it happened in heaven. We have oh hey, ready for this? Ready? Wait for it. That's my family. Look, a picture. I'm getting better at this, Jonathan, okay? So that's my wife, Jody. That's Caleb up top. He's 4 years old now. He just started pre-K 4, so please pray for me because I'm not ready for that. That is my little Zachary, who's not so little anymore. That was like a year ago. He's 3. And then we are expecting our daughter in January. So yes, thank you. Please pray for that because I already have a hard time disciplining these 2 because I just love them a ton and I don't get to see them as often as I would like. And so I don't know what I'm going to do to discipline a daughter. I imagine I'll just be poor. But pray for me. We're very excited about that. And I'll just kind of, you know what? I've spent way too much time to not leave this first one back up there again. There you go. So I wanted to share a little bit about just some background information on me before we get started. Again, thank you so much for making this a priority, this task meeting. I started in youth ministry 10 years ago at St. Francis of Assisi in Manitowoc, Wisconsin. Anybody heard of Manitowoc? Okay, has anyone heard of Manitowoc not because of making a murderer? Oh, yeah, okay, good, one of you. That was wild. I moved there right when that whole kind of thing happened, a huge tragedy. And it was not even talked about after like 3 months, and then a documentary comes out years later, and now it's like news every day. So I went to Manitowoc. I grew up Catholic, culturally Catholic, never really enjoyed going to church. I went to like try to find girlfriends, and then like to appease my mom and get out of chores. And I'm a Lions fan. We moved to Chicago. I know the Lions won the Super Bowl this year. It's a beautiful thing. We moved to Chicago. My dad became a Bear fan, and so my choices on Sunday were to stay home and watch the Bears or go to church with my mom. And so I went to church as a Lions fan. And I never really understood who God was, or I didn't really understand the basic gospel message, understand the charisma at all. I never really felt like growing up, even though I went to religious ed, I did my sacrament prep, I never really felt prepared or like I made a decision on my own that I wanted to be Catholic. So I'm growing up, and I'm about 19 years old, and I meet a guy named Father Schuster. At the time, he was Deacon Dan. Father Schuster was the vocation director in Green Bay for a while. And so he becomes a deacon and gets assigned to this parish I'm at in Illinois. And I helped start a youth group there. We helped start a life team program at this parish, even though I was barely going to church at this point, but I thought it would be so cool to try to get involved with youth. A horrible idea. But God used it in an okay way, I suppose. And at our first life night, here comes this young deacon. And I was in this parish that was a very vibrant parish as far as like having resources. It wasn't vibrant as far as ministry, but it had a lot of resources, and we had things to do, right? Pizza nights on Friday night, and all kinds of events, but never really Jesus-centered stuff. And so I had never seen a seminarian in my life at the age of 19, even though I lived in this, urban area. And so I see this young guy who looks like Dirk Bentley with a collar on, and I was like, why does this handsome guy want to be a priest? Like, what even is a priest? I thought priests just worked on Sundays at this point. Okay, maybe that's a good thing. You can do whatever you want throughout the week. I've learned since then, okay? I'm very busy. And so he decides to strike up a conversation with me, and he says, hey, what is it that you believe in? I was like, what a weird first question to ask somebody. I don't know you. And I just answered him, and I said, I don't really know. And so he invited me to coffee. The next day, we got coffee at Starbucks, and he pulls out a breviary. I thought it was a Bible. I'd never seen a breviary before. And I was like, what is this? And he's like, oh, we're going to pray. And I was like, the heck we are, not in this public Starbucks place. I've got friends here, dude. And he's just like, Jonathan, we're going to pray. If you want to, I bought your coffee, didn't I? And I was like, okay, that's good. So we start praying. He teaches me morning prayer. And after that, we met every single week for an entire year. And he kind of served as a spiritual director / teacher. I felt really dumb when he gave me the book Catholicism for Dummies, which is one of the best books I have ever read, by the way. It is unbelievable stuff. And so I'm reading through it, and he ends up being ordained a priest, and I went to his ordination, and I've never been to one of those. And long story short, I'm about to drop out of college and be a bartender in downtown Chicago, living large. And he gives me a call as I'm about to sign a lease on an apartment. And I hadn't talked to him in 3 months because he just got ordained, he was very busy. And he calls and says, hey, I think you should consider studying theology. And I literally said, what is theology? I had no idea. And he says, well, it's the study of God. It's kind of like the Catholicism for Dummies book that you've been reading, except like a little bit more serious. And I was like, okay. So I said, I don't know if I can get into school. I'm not doing well in school. I never showed up to my classes at this community college. And he goes, well, there's a school in Manitowoc called Silver Lake College that you would for sure get into. And I was like, okay. So I applied. And the very next day I get a call back. And I don't even know if they received my application, but I got a call back and they said, hey, you're in. And I said, oh my goodness, this is great. What should I do? And they're like, well, you can move in next week. School starts in 2 weeks. And I was like, okay. So I just got up and I moved. And I went away from my family, like 2 hours north, and moved to Silver Lake College, got a job bartending my way through theology, volunteered at this parish called St. Francis of Assisi as a middle school and high school life teen and EdCore team member. And I don't know if any of you are familiar with those resources, and I might bring them up just a few times today. They're not the only ones, but they're doing a great job. Joel Stepanek is my best friend and the godfather of my kids and the godfather of his. He's the director of resources for Life Teen, and he was the youth minister at St. Francis at the time. So I'm volunteering, becoming best friends with him, end up getting this degree in theology and falling in love with ministry, becoming the middle school youth minister, then the high school youth minister with Joel, which was such a fun year. We had 3 full-time high school youth ministers. It was wild. I mean, it was so fun. And then he ended up taking a job for Life Teen. I'm still not over that. My heart hurts. And I ended up taking over his job as director of youth ministry. And so I was there for about 7 years total, from the time I was 21 until I moved. While I was there, I got my master's degree in religious education with an emphasis in youth and adult ministry from Fordham University. Unfortunately, that was online, so I never got to go to New York. And I was going to go to graduation, and my son Caleb was born on graduation day, so I wasn't able to get to New York, but that's okay. I've made it there since then. And then from there, I was doing retreats and being asked to share the gospel at different places, and always felt very humbled to do that. And I kept doing this retreat to my home parish every year, and they kept asking me to work for them. And I kept saying no, and finally God opened the door. I got to go on Family Feud, which I'll explain a little bit later. And from Family Feud and the winnings from Family Feud, I was able to put a down payment on a house in Illinois, which is way more expensive than in Wisconsin, and took a job as the director of youth ministry at St. Paul in Gurney. I did that for 2 years, and we did some fun, great things there. God did just incredible things, and I became the director of catechesis and evangelization there about 2 years ago. and got really involved, hired a youth minister, hired a middle school youth minister, and then got really involved with young adult and adult ministry, which is very, very scary for me at the time because I hadn't really necessarily done it. But that went super well, and out of nowhere, God just dropped another, I don't know, miracle and called me to this place at St. James where I'm at now. And basically the pastor called me and said, hey, I know you're doing good things over here. I don't want to steal you, but I want to steal you. And he goes, I'd love for you to build an evangelization team and really try to do next level evangelization in the area of Arlington Heights, which is the north suburbs of Chicago. And I prayed about it a lot. I thought about it a lot. My kids get free Catholic school. My wife and I have been praying about that for a long time. What are we going to do with our kids? And so 6 months ago, I took the job as the director of evangelization here at St. James and was tasked with building an evangelization team. And I tell you all of this not to make you jealous, because it is ridiculous, our evangelization staff. And I know a lot of us were working really hard. But to share with you a little bit of the culture change that we're trying to do at St. James, which is very relevant to the talk that I'm about to give. And so I get to be the director of evangelization. I have a full-time high school youth minister, a full-time middle school youth minister who also runs confirmation, full-time 1 through 5 person, a full-time administrative assistant, and 2 full-time Focus missionaries we're a pilot parish for Focus, who is trying to start doing more things at the parish level. Any of you here to Focus, I'm sure, doing great stuff in colleges and trying to find out how they can do those things in that radical friendship and evangelization at a parish level. And so, and then we have a part-time, special needs coordinator, so that every single person throughout the entire, gamut of ages can participate fully and be fully integrated into every single program that we have by having mentors. And so it's a huge blessing, but it's also a huge challenge, because to those much has been given, much will be asked, and so the pastor has very lofty goals and expectations. But every day I get to go to work and pray with the team and try to engage a culture, all ages, but especially here at this parish, not being very used to youth ministry, engage this culture of youth ministry to try to bring Jesus to where these young people are, this Generation Z. So that is just a little bit of a story of kind of my life, how I got to be here in front of you today. And I'm excited to talk to you today about digital evangelization, particularly with young people. And I know that not everyone here works with young people directly. And lately I haven't really been doing that either. So then why am I here? I think all of us, no matter what we are doing in ministry or where we are in life, are still called to youth ministry. And if we aren't called to minister directly to youth, we are certainly called to minister to their parents or to their grandparents, and by doing that, we are still doing youth ministry. And so regardless of what age group you work with, or how young or old you are, or how the words of the game that we're about to play you may have never heard, that is fine. But today is for everyone and can help us all to engage all cultures, and particularly this Generation Z. Sound good? Okay, excellent. I'd like to start with just a quick dynamic, and you could, maybe just get in groups of 3 or 4, and you don't have to move, just close enough to share with each other and come up with answers. But I wanted to start with this game. Are you ready for this? Wait for it. Name game. See that? That took me 20 minutes. Okay. So this is a name game. I'm going to put a word up. And it is a word that is very used right now by Generation Z. Generation Z is really anyone kind of born in the late 90s, early 2000s, post-millennial, if you will. And we'll be talking a lot about how to engage this culture today. And so we're going to throw a word up on the screen, and I would just like you to have a conversation with the 3 or 4 people around you and come up with what you think the definition of this word is. And then we'll just have a few people share. And we'll do this really quickly so we can get to some of the content, but I wanted to break up the morning as well. So our first word is woke. Woke. I will use it in a sentence, like a spelling bee, okay? Wow, Mrs. Tannenbaum, I didn't realize you were so woke. Okay, Mrs. Tannenbaum is a teacher. Okay? Woke. So go ahead and take just a second and chat about what you think that word might mean.
You don't want to hear it. I'll say usually. Yeah, that's because that's what makes oriented, aware, and acts in that fashion.
Yeah, can we give her a hand? That's great. It is also now, that is the literal definition, that's a beautiful definition, and that is what it is. It's also now just unfortunately being taken to mean with it in general, which is just not what it should mean, but it is, that's part of it. Just so that you're aware, if you ever hear someone say it, that's what it means. Your next word, okay? Lit. And I'll tell you what it doesn't mean, okay? It is not a bad thing. Let's just say it's not a bad thing. Okay? Alright, go ahead, take a few seconds and check out this.
Originally, we had a core member and all the kids so I looked it up this last year. So it was originally 5. That's where it's
it used to be a drug reference, but now it's like full of life and full of energy.
Yeah, so isn't that interesting? I love how he just said it. What's your name?
Christian.
Christian. I love that you said it used to be a drug reference, but now it basically means like that's awesome, it's fulfilling. And so Generation Z, while it can be very scary culture sometimes, will take some things that might have been bad and make them good and bring good out of this culture. So that is exactly right. And it's cool. That's so lit. I forgot to use it in a sentence, so we'll make sure we do the next one. All right, here's your next word, okay? Stand.
Oh, wow.
Stand. This is a newer one. It's been used a lot last 3 months. Stand. Go ahead and chat about it. Oh, a sentence. Here's a sentence, okay? Okay. I don't want to give it away. Give it away.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. I love, I stan Justin Bieber. I stan Justin Bieber. That's the sentence. And it's not an acronym. Okay, ready, go. Stan.
See, I'm learning stuff from my dad too. Is that right? Stan was just like, which is weird because I'm like on my phone's project. Okay, so you are 95 and
Well, all right, who has an idea or a guess of what stan means? This is fun, right? This is great. Please, Shannon.
So standing is like being a hardcore fan of someone that you like would defend them on Twitter, and you will not, you'll argue their case like they are the best, you're the ultimate fan.
Yes, that is exactly right. Give Shannon a hand. Shannon Christian is still like This is fascinating though. It's fascinating how this culture works because this word actually comes from an Eminem song that was around when I was in high school called Stan, and it's about a super fan. It's a horrifying song. And I like Eminem like on the side. It's hard to listen to him now, unfortunately, but as a rap, whatever. But that song, it's not a holy song. And it's about a really obsessive compulsive fan who does some scary stuff, and his name is Stan. And these kids would never have even heard this song. I have no idea how it turned into this new kind of meme. But again, they've made it to not be an obsessive, creepy fandom, but to be someone that you support and someone that you're a fan of. So if you'll hear that word, and teens will use it like with their friends now, like as a way of almost saying I like this person, or I love my boyfriend or girlfriend. Like, oh, I just stan him. It's totally used all the time. And so if you hear it, that's what it means. Okay? Did you have a?
The sentence you used was I stan Justin Bieber, and I just wanted to follow follow up on that.
I'll let you be bringing Justin Bieber up today in this talk, so wait for it, It's gonna be good. This could be absolutely, are we recording? Oh, we are, oh goodness. All right, next one, here we go, we're almost done. We just have a couple more. And we're actually gonna skip dope because it's very similar to lit, but same thing. So now people will say dope, it's just cool. Like, oh man, that's dope. And it's just fascinating, really. All right, here we go, ready? Bae. My wife's name is Jody, okay? So I will say Jody is bae. Jody is bae. That is the word. Go ahead and take just a few seconds.
This one. It's like casually
All right. Who knows what bae means? Anyone have a guess? Please, we'll go in the back.
Before anything or anyone else.
Yes, and great clarification. Before anything or anyone else, bae. And it is also now used in a new way, basic, B-A-E-S-I-C, which is a new fall term that the young people are using. So like Uggs and pumpkin spice lattes are so basic, making fun of themselves for being basic, but saying that B-A-E because they're still before anything else. It's fascinating, these young people. All right, last one, and this is my new favorite one, and this is a way newer word. Here we go, it is sus. Sus, okay? And so a teenager asks me, John, what do you, a teen girl asks me, John, what do you think of Jeremy? And I would never say this about a teen, but just assume I did. I would say, oh, Jeremy is sus. Jeremy is sus. Okay? Go ahead, take the next few seconds, chat what you think that one might mean, and then we'll move on. You're doing great.
First thing popped in my head is that suspect, like not like some off or something.
Well, that's what no idea. We hit those first three, and I was like, man, I've got myself.
The new one. All right, so any guesses? Any guesses for sus? Did I stump you?
Suspect?
Who said that?
Dang it.
Yes, it's suspect, and like it's just a word that as a 32-year-old, I've never even used the word suspect unless I'm like watching a detective show. So like the fact that they use the word suspect and then start using the word sus in their normal conversation, and it happens all of the time, and like they'll say it about you, like in a funny way, like, well, I don't know about John, man, sometimes he's sus, and it's like, what does that even mean? Sus, and they're like, oh, you know, sometimes you just don't know what you're up to. It's like, what? So that's what that word means. If you hear any of these words, don't discipline the young ones that you work with. And please share it with their parents, because a lot of them might be wondering as well.
Like,
what is it? Okay, wait for it though. Here we go. Back to the main one, baby. Let's get it. Give yourselves a hand. You did great. You did great. So I don't know about you, but I hear these words, I see this culture, and it's changing faster than any culture has ever changed before, statistically, and it's proven data. And the young people are used to change, and they embrace change, which is not something that myself or my parents' generation or my grandparents' generation necessarily did. And I see these things and these trends, and it worries me. And I see the statistics, which we'll kind of go over in just a second, of Generation Z, and I kind of start to lose hope. And I have to learn all this new lingo, not to use the lingo, to be cool like them, because that won't work, obviously, but to know it, because we have to enter into their culture if we want to be able to bring Jesus into their culture, right? To be in the world but not of the world is still as relevant as ever, if not even more now, since there are almost two worlds, an IRL world in real life, and then an online world, which most of our Generation Z is growing up in, if not all. And so don't lose hope. And I think we can all agree the importance of learning this culture and understanding it so that we can bring Jesus into it. Because if we don't, we know what happens, right? We know what happens in the church. And an interesting thing about the Generation Z is that, and I'm a millennial, so I can make fun of millennials, right? We all know the jokes, and I wish we had a little more time so I could show you the John Christ Adopt a Millennial video. If you haven't seen it, it is life-changing funny. My generation is sometimes lazy, or we're moving back in, and I moved back in with my parents, and we're not necessarily motivated, and we want to make a difference, but we don't know how, and so we just jump on whatever the next hashtag is, this millennial generation, not even knowing sometimes that can be a joke. If you think of like Coney 2012, which ended up just kind of being a huge hoax, the issues happening in Africa, not a hoax, the company and the hashtag, a big hoax. And so we kind of are looking to make a difference, but we don't know how, and so we just cling to something and hold on tight. But Generation Z, like, they actually want to make a difference, and they want to know more about the hashtag, and they'll research hashtags, and they'll find out what is the truth in politics, and dig for it and find that they can't find it, and then be annoyed and frustrated. And so they're really looking, more than I think any generation right now, for the truth of the church. And we have that, right? We have the fullness of truth as Catholics, and that is what they want. And so I try not to lose hope, but we definitely need to understand this culture if we want to bring Jesus into it. And so I'd like to show you this very short video that goes over some statistics and gives us a good understanding and background for what we'll be talking about for the rest of today, if it works together. So, it's a fascinating video with some fascinating statistics, and a couple things stick out. And again, some things from this video will come up throughout the day. And please, any time that you have questions, I'll take them now. We'll have time at the end of the morning session and the afternoon. So please feel free to interrupt. It won't throw me off or anything. It just might be weird for the YouTube video. Hi, YouTube. So, hi, teens, if you're watching this. That was about you. That's awkward. So the one that really, the stat, and it wasn't even a stat, it was just a thought that this young lady shared in there, was that they don't feel like they can ask the questions in church, right? They're looking for the truth, but they don't even feel like that when they're there they can ask for it. Another thing that really stuck out to me is that they're so good at processing information that they'll decide within a few seconds whether or not something is worth their time. And we'll get to this in this afternoon, but I really want to just highlight that, because the importance of digital evangelization, the way that we use media, and when I say digital evangelization throughout the day, I mean anything that you can do digitally to reach young people. It can be social media, which we'll talk a lot about, your parish website, showing a video or doing an engaging activity that is from media. So for instance, a Jimmy Fallon game, up front, which would be a normal thing you could do up front in front of a group of people that teens would be interested in. That's not digital, but it is taking something from the digital world of Jimmy Fallon and putting it in front of them and showing them that you know about their culture and things that they find funny. But we have to make sure that whatever it is that we're doing in ministry with any of our people, but especially with young people, that we're grabbing their attention right away and then not shying away from the truth, which they really are searching for. And finding ways and figuring out ways to get them to realize that they're searching for it. So if you ask most young people, are you happy? Or how are you doing? A lot of them will just look at you and be like, I'm great. Life's good, and immediately they'll pull their phone out and start checking social media and kind of disengage from the conversation. But if you ask them, like, are you stressed ever? And they might be like, oh yeah, like I've got AP classes and I have to get to the best college to get the best job, and once I get the best job I have to get the best promotion, and then I have to make sure that I have enough money for my family, make sure they have the best. And so it's like, why are you thinking about that in 7th grade? Like, you should be enjoying life. And so you find out right when you ask, are you happy? And they answer yes, by asking one next question, are you ever stressed? But they'll just go on this litany of stress and anxiety that they have. Time magazine came out with a study about a year and a half ago that said this generation of Generation Z, or iGen, is the most depressed and anxious generation of all time. And they're not just saying that because we're snowflakes or whatever the people want to say. It's really because we are the most connected our world has ever been, and the loneliest our world has ever been. Because we try to find authentic relationships online and judge ourselves based solely on that. And so just a simple question of, are you stressed or do things stress you out? Wait for their response. And it's heartbreaking, but also eye-opening. Because we can talk about how it isn't the best grade on your AP test that's going to make you happy, or the college acceptance letter that you get, or the full ride scholarship. It is Jesus, and he has a name, and he is the only one who can satisfy. And then we can use C.S. Lewis and talk about how when we lay our head down at night and we realize that we're not happy or satisfied, that it's proof that we were made for another world. And they hear that, like that little quote, and I just misquoted a bit, but that quote from C.S. Lewis has had a bigger impact on teenagers that I've been ministry with in the last 10 years than almost any other quote. Like the fact that we lay our head down at night and we're not satisfied with the things of this world is proof that we were made for another world, and that it's not supposed to be like this, and it's not how God created us. And so a beautiful thing. I want to go over a couple of the statistics that maybe were not mentioned, or highlight ones that were, just to give us again a broader scope of what we're looking at. So Generation Z comprises 32% of the world's population. By 2020, which is coming up in a few months, Generation Z will make up 40% of all US consumers. And so all of the marketing that is happening you name the network or Netflix or anything, is really being geared towards these young people who are not fully developed in their brain yet, especially the fellas, until they get to about age 26. And so they can develop different addictions to media and all kinds of different things and they're just constantly, people know this, product companies know this, and they're just placing all of these ads towards these young people. Generation Z influences about $600 billion a year in family spending. Nearly 50% of Gen Zs are connected to the internet. This one was in there for 10 hours or more a day. And that is, think about that, 10 hours or more. That is wild. Some people aren't even awake for that long. Like, it's an insane thing. It's just connected to them. And that stat has been brought up a lot in different ministry areas, both Catholic and Protestant. And people argue it, but the idea is that they would be connected to their phone that often a day, not necessarily staring at the screen, but if you add up all the times that they take their phone out and check it, or even while they're driving, or watching Netflix before bed, it's any kind of phone use at all, about 10 hours or more a day. 95% of them have access to a smartphone, and to put that into a little bit of perspective, my generation, I'm 32, and I got my first smartphone when I was 22. And it was kind of still a new thing, like only the rich seems to have the first iPhone. And then iPods came out, and so you didn't have to get an iPhone because you could have that for a while at least, or the smart iPod. And so that's just fascinating how that really they're growing up with this encyclopedia of knowledge in their hand from the time that they're little. Gen Z consumers are 2 times more likely to shop on mobile than millennials, which is amazing because we love Amazon Prime, right? Oh my goodness, it's the greatest. Instagram and YouTube are the most popular social media platforms, followed very closely and almost getting surpassed by Snapchat and TikTok, which is the new one. Raise your hand if you've heard of TikTok. It's just fascinating that that's even a thing. It's like, guys, we had Vine 8 years ago. Okay, we didn't just stick with Vine. Why did that have to go away? It was so good. It's just amazing. The 41% of Generation Z says that they use Instagram for their self-worth and to find brands. So they're actually using social media for the ads, which is like the opposite of any of us, I think, in this room. Like, right, anytime an ad pops up on anything, we're like, pop-up blockers on, what is happening? But they enjoy finding things on social media for them to purchase. 39% of Gen Z say that their social media affects their self-esteem. And then 71%, this was not in the video, 71% of Gen Zers watch more than 3 hours of online videos every day. Which is, wow, that is something, like, I do enjoy social media. I have a presence on social media. I love it. That's part of why Jonathan asked me to come today, because I really do try to evangelize using it. And I'll get into that in just a few minutes. But I don't consume a lot of it because I'm busy. Like, right? A lot of us are busy. And I think it was your suggestion to unplug from social media and read a book. Like, amen. We can get young people to do that if we understand why they're on it, meet them where they're at, and show the benefits of it. But if we meet them and say, hey, it's just bad in general, then they're just gonna be like, whoa, that's like where I spend most of my day. But man, I need to read a book tonight. But I don't understand. I'm not part of this culture that like watches a YouTube video and then it just says next up and it plays a random one and they'll just watch it. No idea why, and they'll just let it repeat and go on and on and on for hours at a time. And so this means that we do have to utilize the things that they are consuming and not just utilize it, but to make it good. To make the things in their culture good, or to bring out the good from this culture. And we have to find new ways to engage this generation. And I think that there are tons of new ways to do this, and I want to share with you one example right now. So I don't usually talk about this almost ever because it's been kind of easy to keep this out of my ministry life for a few months. But my little brother is Ninja. And Ninja is like he was the most famous person in America last year. That's him with Jimmy Fallon. He's been on the Jimmy Fallon show now 3 times. He's been on the Ellen show twice and did a fundraiser for Ellen and for the things that she's into. And he was actually listed as Time's top 100 most influential people in America this past year. He also was just on The Masked Singer, which that was weird. Normally I know all the cool stuff that's happening and I get previews of what's coming out and I know about the deals before they happen, and he's just got sponsored by Adidas and there's all kinds of things, and I won't spend a lot of time talking about him. But it's important to know that every single young person in your church, every single young person between the ages of 10 and 18 and probably higher than that, know who he is and have watched either a YouTube video of him before or have engaged in his stream, which I'll explain just a bit of what that is. And that can be a good thing because he has made a lot of good changes to his content. He is a lot more appropriate now. When he got famous and blew up, he realized that most of his fan base were 8, 9, 10, and 11-year-olds, and so he shouldn't be using the language he was using. And so he really has taken this platform to try to do good, but a lot of the bad videos and a lot of the things that he used to say are still out there on YouTube and can cause a lot of stress for parents. I never am able to recommend watching him to young people. I can talk about it with high schoolers, but with middle schoolers, that's a parent's job to discern what this is. But he is a full-time video game streamer. And that means, and it might sound crazy, but that means that he literally sits in front of his computer, plays a game. He's very entertaining, he's funny, you can see his face on a webcam, and then you can see the game he's playing. And then you can go in and you can type in his chat and watch him play video games. And so the number one question people ask, especially people above the age of 30, are why would anyone watch someone play video games? It's so dumb. And then the next follow-up question is, why would anybody watch someone play video games when you could just play the video game yourself? And I totally get those questions, and as my family has gotten asked a lot about this over the last year and a half, and we've come up with I think a good reason why. First is imagine watching your favorite television show and think of your favorite actor or actress from any show or movie and being able to actually chat with them and have them answer your questions and respond. And so these, like it or not, these people on Twitch, these people who stream on YouTube and Mixer and all these different platforms are world-known and famous, and they have these communities, which again I'll talk about in just a minute, and you can interact with them and support the mission. And so when Tyler does charities for hospitals, and he's raised millions of dollars for St. Jude's Children's Hospital, young people feel a part of it. Little kids will go up to their mom and dad or grandma and grandpa and say, hey, can I have your credit card for $10? It's going to St. Jude's. And they're like, what? And then it does, and they feel like they made a huge difference when Tyler then goes and gives the check to St. Jude's and visits kids who are dying of cancer, or does a Make-A-Wish thing. And so that's kind of the first reason. The second is that video games have evolved in such a way that there's more than just beating a game now. There's way big skill gaps in video games in the same way that there's skill gaps in football. And so the same, why am I watching the Lions play football? Why wouldn't I just go outside and play football? Well, I want to watch the Lions because they're the best. They're not the best. The NFL is the best, right? And so the same reason people will watch someone play video games is and a lot of times they'll watch while they're also playing. So they're playing and they're looking over in between games and they're typing in the chat and they're engaging in this community, and they feel, especially young people, they feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves, and they feel heard, and they feel less bullied, and they feel like they can create this persona that is who they really want to be, but they can't be in real life. And that's sad. That's not a great reason to do it. But that is a huge reason why young people are watching streams. And so his has blown up, and he's making millions of dollars playing video games and traveling the world and doing all kinds of things. And lately, especially, just trying to make a difference in the world, which I'm proud of him for. But as this whole thing was happening within the last year and a half, I was making fun of it. I was like, this is dumb. He's been streaming for 10 years. He's only blown up in the last year and a half. And I never really understood why he did it or why someone would watch. And sometimes he would say things like, hey, I can't come over tonight and hang out. I have to stream. And I'm like, dude, family comes first. And he's like, you don't understand. These are my friends too, and this is my family too. And I was like, whoa, 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 no, it's not. And he would use the word community. And I'd be like, no, I work for the church, dude. I know community. And that you can't have online community is what I would say to him. And so about 6 months after he, played with Drake, the famous rapper, and that kind of helped. Plus, he was just a great streamer and entertaining and good at the game. Fortnite is the main game that he plays, which, if you haven't heard of, is the game that everyone's playing. And then the new meme now, the meme is Fortnite is dead. It is still the most watched game of all time today, even as it was 6 months ago and a year ago. And so I was hanging out with him, and one day he goes, John, you should stream. I had started playing Fortnite about when it came out, like an hour a night when my wife and kids were sleeping, with one of my best friends who lives far away, and we got to just catch up and chat, and it's a game that you don't have to pay attention to a whole ton in the beginning, and so you're just hanging out and talking to a friend on the phone while doing something. And he's like, since you're already doing it, you might as well just turn the stream on, and then you can use it for evangelization. And I was like, wait a second, Tyler, why are you telling me about evangelization? I'm praying for him, and right at this moment, he's Catholic, and he's great. He has a great pro-life story that came out. My mom the doctor recommended my mom abort him, and she said absolutely not. They thought he was going to have Down syndrome, and they had him, and here he is. And so he told that story on his stream, and that made some Catholic circle news, if you will. But I'm like, what are you telling me about evangelization? Well, I should have thought of that first. And I said, well, I don't want to look like I'm riding your wave. I don't want to look like I'm trying to make money off of your name or anything like that. But he goes, no, I mean, you're already playing. You're not very good at the game, but you're fun. And you can reach these young people who are spending hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours watching streams from their phone, from their computer, from whatever. And a lot of parents don't even know that their kids are watching these streams or even know what Twitch or Mixer or YouTube live streaming is. And so I prayed about it, and within a week, I found one of my best friends who's in marketing who made a logo for me. He came up with a name for me, so Bearded Blevins is the name that I kind of chose. He made this cool looking logo, which maybe we'll show in this video. And I started to stream, and all I would do is play Fortnite, and I came up randomly with this phrase as I was playing. I love you, God loves you more, let's change the world. That's kind of a basic pre-evangelization way of getting them to know I'm going to be talking about God on this stream. And within a few months, I had over hundreds of thousands of views from young people just coming in, and not just young, and I'll explain that in just a minute too. And 50,000 plus followers, and my Instagram started growing a ton, my Twitter started growing a ton, and I started noticing that it actually, it can be a form of community. I'm getting to know people. I know their names when they come in to the chat, and their name is Purple Venom. I know that that's Jamie, and that Jamie was here, and that she wants prayers for her 2 kids, one of them who's very sick. And I'm starting to realize that this community, and some of people that I actually know in real life, priests that watch my stream and that will play Fortnite with me while I'm streaming, are coming into the chat and answering people's questions about Catholicism and Christianity. And there are these people who are usually Twitch and this online world can be such a dark place where some of the most foul language I have ever even imagined of hearing is said. And some of the streamers are just some of the most toxic, filthy things you could ever imagine someone doing in a live video. And these young people are just clicking all over. And I try to just be a light in a little bit of this darkness on Twitch and trying to use digital evangelization to reach this culture that is spending so much time online. And so instead of telling you a lot about that, I'm just going to show you this video that Grotto Network did. Grotto Network is, anyone know Grotto Network? There's some Notre Dame people here. So Emily May is a friend of mine and she approached me and asked if they could do a documentary on the Bearded Blevins stream and how I'm using it for evangelization. So it explains it better than I could, and we'll keep talking about digital evangelization right after. And I don't show you that to be like, oh, look at the cool things John's doing. No, it's not at all like that. I just wanted to help you to understand what I felt like God was calling me to be here with this, Twitch community, if you will. And I wanted to share some of the glory stories that I've seen from it. So a guy came into my stream right away, the first day that I ever streamed, and he gave me like a donation. And that's one of the things you can do on these platforms is donate to someone, because if you're not getting any, money from it at all, then it wouldn't be a thing, right? Then people wouldn't have the time to do it. And so people want to support the people that they believe in, and so they'll donate. And this guy donates, a good amount. And I was like, whoa, why are you doing this? And he's like, I've never watched streams before, but I support this mission. Turns out he was from Norway, had never been to church in his entire life. Norway is a very secular place. And he started coming in the stream like every single time. He found out he owned a couple of companies at a young age, and he took over from his parents, and so that's where he was getting some of his expendable income. And we had this huge event in Chicago called like some Red Bull, tournament thing that I ended up going to, and I just kind of put it out there on my stream. If anybody wants to come to Chicago and hang out at this event, I'm in. And he flew from Norway all the way to Chicago to hang out at this Red Bull event. And the event happened, and my wife and kids went out of town, and so I had some of the guys over at my house, and I was very nervous about that, so I didn't know what was going to happen. And he just kept asking questions about faith, like questions that he had been listening to other people ask in the stream that never felt comfortable enough to ask himself. And so we're just sitting on my couch, and he's like, how do we know that there is a God? How do we know that the Catholic Church is the right church? How do I know this? And we talked until 1 o'clock in the morning on this Saturday evening. Sunday morning, I invite the two atheists that were there, him, who is an agnostic, and a non-denominational Protestant friend who were at my house, all from the stream, to Mass the next morning. And all of them came to Mass. And the guy from Norway, I won't say his name, it's being recorded and stuff, actually participated in Mass the entire time. It was the weirdest thing. I didn't tell him to sing. I was like, dude, just hang out, follow me when I sit, stand, kneel, or just sit the whole time just to see it. And he did everything that I was doing, and then was singing the songs horribly off key, but singing. And I was just like, what is happening? Why is this first time ever in church? There's a bunch of Catholics in this church not singing at all. We've been to church their whole lives, and here he is just trying. And he's someone that I've kept in touch with over the last 2 years, who's just been a huge blessing to the community as well. This one random day, I had a birthday stream. My wife and kids ended up going to visit her mom in Wisconsin, and a guy comes into the chat who I knew from the stream. He goes, hey, I just found out I live like an hour from where you might live. And I'm like, how do you know where I might live? And he's like, oh, you mentioned it one time, like the city. And I was like, okay. Well, whatever, just come over. And he's like, yeah, I want to bring you Chick-fil-A for lunch. And I was like, okay. So I gave him my number, and I gave him my address, and he shows up and brings Chick-fil-A. And it was a little awkward at first. Again, a risk. I'm not recommending this to anyone, especially young people. Definitely don't do this, young people. But I looked up online. I had known him for over 1.5 years in this chat. And so he comes over, brings Chick-fil-A, and we just hung out. I then realized that he's just this great guy who's looking for community. He can't find it, doesn't know where to look. Grew up Catholic, but he isn't going to Mass. And he ended up going to confession with a priest in my house for the first time in 10 years, just from hanging out and getting to know the priest, also from the stream. And all of this was just playing Fortnite and talking a little bit about Jesus. It's a pre-evangelization stream. I'm not doing catechetics on there. I will answer any question and any controversial question, and I will share the church's teaching. But often it is just a safe place for young people to go when there's not a lot of those places for them to go on Twitch. And it turns into what God can do with just being part of a culture and bringing him into it has just absolutely blown my mind. So, am I saying that we all should go home and stream? Yes. No, I'm not saying that, and I hope that's obvious, but I do think that we can try to be creative with the platforms that teens are using. And we can try to be creative with the platforms teens are using. And that might mean that somebody here is called to stream. Well, you can stream anything. You can stream cooking. You can stream how to be a good grandparent. You can stream how to knit. And you can stream youth ministry nights. You have to get waivers, but you can stream anything and create this place that is safe for people to go and to hear the name of Jesus and to hear the gospel message, that charisma, and to hear the Catholic faith at a platform that they're used to and that they are familiar with. And so it's good to be aware of these things and to know these things and to continue to learn about this culture, because it's way bigger than just my brother, Ninja. Young people you ask any young person, what's your favorite movie? A lot of them might not necessarily even have one. They might say one that they watched like 5 years ago, like Frozen or something, if you ask a middle schooler, and they're embarrassed to say Frozen, so they might not say it. But you ask them who their favorite YouTuber is, or ask them who their favorite streamer is, or ask them, what their favorite video game is, and you're going to get answers right away. And that's just the culture that they're used to and that they're in. And I would like to kind of make this note as well. It is not just a guy thing, and it's not just a young person thing. So the average right now, I think, is that the average users of people who are consuming YouTube content, particularly Twitch and Mixer, which are video game streaming services, is 60% men and 40% women. And if you get rid of the video game part and just look at, there's cooking streams and all kinds of different streams, it actually goes up towards more ladies watching than guys. And playing Fortnite, same kind of thing. The video games are really becoming this like everyone thing, and not just particularly men. And it is also people like all of our age. I would say the majority of the people who are invested in the community on Twitch that I have are people who are my age, in their mid-20s, or like older than me and married. And it's very weird to me still that like married couples will put their kids to bed and then put me on the big screen and hang out and talk about Jesus. And so I'm like, watch Netflix. My wife has still never seen one of my streams, and she lives in my house. And so it's just fascinating to me though, because it's just kind of this culture that we're living in, and they believe in bringing Jesus into this culture, and so they're doing it, and they're familiar, and that they're letting their kids watch safe streams. So it's a fascinating thing. It's definitely part of the culture right now, and so anything we can do to even recommend people, and there are a lot of good people out there streaming. Unfortunately, not enough Catholic streamers yet. The Protestant Church is ahead of us, and they've got some great Protestant pastors who are streaming, having great communities, and people are joining Christianity every day because of it. So I'd like to give, to wrap up this morning, I'd like to give 5 practical ways that we can use digital evangelization, or that we can use evangelization with media. Okay, 5 practical ways that we can use media for evangelization, particularly for young people, but also I think a lot of these will go for any age demographic. So the first is, and I hate, by the way, I'm so sorry, I like one of my biggest pet peeves is buzzwords in the Catholic Church, and I know it's like, be an authentic, innovative disciple, missionary disciple. Like I know, but they really, when you break it down and you mean it, they're beautiful words, and there really isn't another word for authentic that means authentic, right? It's way better than saying real. So be authentically you on social media if you're using social media. Be authentically you. So what do I mean by that? Obviously, I would mean don't be fake. But show reality. There's a lot of people who are on social media, and even if you're not using social media to evangelize, that's fine if you're not doing it intentionally. But being authentically Catholic and just you on social media and whatever you're posting about is a form of evangelization. You're showing that you're real. You're showing that you're going through similar things to the people who you're friends with, the people who are following you, and you're showing a real way of trying to live as a missionary disciple in 2019. And so a lot of times you'll see people on Facebook or Instagram specifically sharing like the highlights of everything, right? Look at this beautiful fall day we had at the festival, and you're like, you have 6 kids, how did you get them to take that perfect picture? What we don't see is the 1 hour it took to get that perfect picture, and the hundreds of photos that mom's looking through on the drive home, choosing which one she's going to post. I'm not saying that's bad, But to make that joke every once in a while, that like, hey, here's the one picture from our amazing day. Also, Caleb threw up in the car ride home, Zachary threw a toy at Caleb, that's why his eye is black, and I burnt dinner, you know? Whatever it is, but to show reality, right? Life, we all know, is not perfect. We know that being a Catholic and being a Catholic Christian is hard. And so sharing that with vulnerability on our social media platforms is a way to evangelize, and especially our young people, because they can spot fake from a mile away. They're so good at knowing who's real and who isn't. And they can figure it out, and so it has a huge impact on them. So don't be afraid to show the reality of life on social media, to say how hard it is to pray, or share the tips that you found when it used to be hard to pray, but now you might find it easier to pray, because that has just a giant impact. And I'm sure a lot of you know this, because maybe some, raise your hand if you're like on Facebook, you use Facebook, you have a Facebook account, okay, Instagram. A lot of us. Okay, so see, we're there. You're on there. Whether you use it or not, if you're going to use it, whatever you post on there, people are watching. I don't mean that in a creepy way. It sounds kind of creepy, but they are. Like, I took a break from Facebook for like a year. I tried so hard to be done with Facebook. Like, I'm over it. It's too much to manage. Instagram and Twitter are my absolute favorites. I want to be the patron saint of Twitter. This is my goal. I just love it so much. And I was like, I'm gonna take a break from Facebook, and I got like Facebook messages from people that were like, hey, what's going on? Like, why aren't you talking about Jesus anymore? And I'm like, dude, I haven't talked to you in 7 years since like you've been reading for that long. So just know that whatever it is you're posting, however many likes you're getting, doesn't matter. You're making a difference, and so be authentically you on social media. 2, be positive in all forms online. So be positive. I think someone mentioned, and was it you, my friend, who said something about avoiding negativity on social media earlier when you gave Yeah, like it's huge, right? Because out there right now, it's like everyone just sharing their polar opposite opinion on any issue, political, religious, whatever it is. And I'm not saying you can't ever do that, but to be positive is huge. So avoid gossip, avoid negativity, avoid sharing hateful articles. There's so many articles that I read sometimes, and there's truth everywhere in it. And I'm like, well, why do you sound like such a jerk? We can't be like, take it. So maybe even those ones that we agree with, but they come off as hateful, to not share and to find a way to reword or to put it in your own way of sharing whatever truth it is that you're trying to share. But being positive is just absolutely huge. Because, and what I mean by that, by the way, is not that you can't share reality. It can be a positive, funny post about your kid throwing a toy at someone else. But to not participate in that gossip stuff, or to lament often about the sometimes hectic world that we live in. Next is to know who to follow. Know who to follow. And this is not necessarily for you to follow, although you can. But you don't have to be a social media evangelist. You don't even have to use social media to do ministry well. But you definitely have to know about it. And you have to know who's good to follow. I find, especially with young people, they have no idea who to follow if they want a good influence. They're almost all following Kim Kardashian and Taylor Swift. I'm not making condemnations on them. I'm a huge Teardrops in My Guitar fan, okay? The old Taylor. They're all following Beyonce. They're all following all these people, and that's who pops up. This perfect life, the perfect photo, the $1 million they pay their photographer to make everything look perfect, and then they judge themselves. And there's so much good content out there, so much holy content out there, and they just don't know where to look, and they want it. Like in that video, they talk about how we want to be happy, we want to know what works, but they really just don't know who to follow. And so know who to follow on social media. And I'd like to just give a few examples of people that I follow that really inspire me every single day. So Jonathan Sullivan on Twitter, please, guys, please, please. Okay? Seriously though, he's great on Twitter. Twitter is the absolute greatest. We'll compete for patron saint. Okay? Next is Blessed is She. Raise your hand if you've heard of Blessed is She. I mean, they are like killing the women's ministry game. I follow them. Like, I read their stuff. Sometimes my wife will forward me like their articles a day, and it's just inspiring stuff. Holy women living ministry out, they're just normal people like you and I, who are sharing reflections and sharing their heart and leading people closer to God. They have, this is one group, right? Blessed is She. You show this, one person follows them. All of a sudden they're following them for the next few years. All of a sudden they're in college. and they see that Blessed Is She is doing a retreat in their area, and they go to a retreat for the first time ever, and their lives are changed, all because all you said was follow this one person. So it really is not trivial. This stuff is really working in the world. Mark Hart is one of my favorite people to follow on Twitter. He's a joyful guy, proclaims the gospel. The basic Catholic. So he is the self-acclaimed Catholic Catholic Instagram king. I just started following him yesterday because I was talking to a seminarian friend of mine who said that he was great and that I should follow him, so I checked him out. And really all he's doing is he's sharing positive stuff happening in the church all over the place on his Instagram stories. And so a young person joins the church after being an atheist for 5 years, and he might know the person who helped with that process, and he'll just share the screenshot on his Instagram story and say, guys, please pray for this person who just joined the church. Or he'll have a conversation with someone and say, guys, please pray for this person I had a conversation with. And just showing that you can use social media as a way to pray and to talk about your faith. A podcast I would recommend is Catholic Stuff You Should Know. I cannot tell you how many adults in between the ages of 35 and 95 that I have met over the last year who would say that Catholic Stuff You Should Know has changed their life. A lot of, and that's a podcast, Catholic Stuff You Should Know. A lot of the people that are sitting in our pews, and I know we all know this stuff, don't necessarily know why they're sitting in the pews. They have forgotten. A lot of churches are using Alpha now to try to re-propose the gospel and re-propose the charisma to even Catholics who go to Mass maybe even every day, to remember, like, why is it that I'm going to Mass? Like, do I actually believe that Jesus is present in the Eucharist? Do I actually believe that his body, blood, soul, and divinity every single week? Do I believe he loves me? Do I believe in the actual mercy that I receive in the sacrament of confession? And so this Catholic Stuff You Should Know, they break it down, and it might seem simple to us because we know the faith, but there are so many of the faithful even who listen to this podcast and are like, how come no one ever told me this stuff? And that's where we were like, we have been trying! Come to our stuff, you know? We have pizza! But it's a great podcast. Next is, I would say, Jen Fulweiler. Jen Fulweiler is my role model and my hero, and she's coming to Chicago in October, promo. She's a good friend, and she just is unbelievable. She's funny, she's now into comedy, she has a Sirius XM radio show. She's a mom of like 5, I think, maybe more kids. And she's just hilarious and real, and like, she like goes out to the pool with her kids, and she completely ignores them and talks on the phone, and she's like, listen, I don't care that I'm ignoring my kids. The fact that I'm out here and I'm this pale is a miracle. I love them, it's an act of service. And I was like, oh, that's so good. But she's hilarious and she's inspiring and shares the faith. She's a former atheist and she shares her story often on there. And so again, just telling someone to follow this one person could make a huge difference in someone's life. Sarah Erickson. You're like, nah, you follow Sarah Erickson? Oh, she's great. You'll see her on there. She writes for Blessed Is She. Just a young adult in college living out her faith and using social media in a beautiful way. I haven't even told her that I'm using her, so if anyone does know her, I'll make sure I send her a text and let her know. And then last, Jackie and Bobby Angel are just doing a good job of showing what it's like to be married and to try to be Catholic in this kind of crazy world. So know who to follow. Again, you don't have to be on it, you don't have to go follow, you don't have to try to be the patron saint of any of the social medias, but to know who to follow when you're talking to parents and people you're ministering to, or adults even, is a huge way to evangelize in this culture. Next, and this is so important, I want to give a shout out to Leah Murphy. If anyone knows Leah Murphy, she's unbelievable. She's leading the cutting edge of trying to find the good in culture. And so look for the good in their culture. Look for the good. Bring the good out from the culture that they're living in. There's a lot of bad. There is. If you listen to the lyrics of songs nowadays, it is scary. I think of Billie Eilish, who is like this famous person now. She's super young, and she sings these dark, lonely songs, but people love her, and they love her because she's honest. She's honest about how she feels. She's not hiding. She's not creating a fake persona. And so young people flock to her, and even though I wish that they wouldn't listen to those songs and maybe feel worse about themselves, I understand why they like her because of her honesty. So you can take her honesty in a conversation with a young person or a parent who has young people and say, I understand why you like her. It's because she's honest, and Jesus wants us to be honest. And so I wouldn't recommend necessarily listening, but it's just good to bring the good out of their culture.
Which artist were you just referring to?
Billie Eilish. Yep. The next I'll chat about, and by the way, none of us are perfect, and so anyone who I bring up here, if they have a breakdown, YouTube, just know today is October 3rd, 2019. Okay? Right, is it 4th? 3rd. Justin Bieber. So let's just walk through a little bit of what Justin Bieber has done. He's been famous for the last 15 to 20 years. The heartthrob when he was like 13 or 14 years old. Then he kind of went through a weird phase for a long time and wasn't necessarily the greatest influence if you listen to his music or see his music videos or follow on social media. About a year ago, he's all of a sudden being spotted with this Hillsong pastor, right? This megachurch pastor, and they're shirtless, walking around like beaches, and they're like, Jesus loves you, but they're also like, he's also living this party life. And so you're like, all right, Justin, is this real? Is it not? What's actually going on? Fast forward to the last few months, and he is now sharing a daily Bible study. He's opened up about his addictions in his life. He's opened up about how God has healed those completely, and that he's always going to be healing those throughout the rest of his life. He's gotten married and is now sharing often what it's like to love and to sacrifice. He is championing his wife instead of maybe making lyrics or posting things in a derogatory way, and talks about church for real instead of just like taking pictures with a pastor. And he's also leading praise and worship at different church services when he could be making millions touring the world. So taking that good from there, do we want him to be Catholic? Yes, keep praying for him. That would be amazing. But we're taking something in their culture that might not normally be like a good thing and bringing the good out, like Justin Bieber. Next, I would mention Kanye West. Kanye West has been on both ends of every spectrum you could imagine over the last 10 years of his career. And for all I know, his new album hasn't necessarily released, but it's supposed to. Maybe it isn't a gospel album and we're being fooled. But I think it's real. And he says in his interviews that he's only going to do gospel music from now on. And his reason for it is that he's been to the top, he's made all the money in the entire world he could ever make, and he's still miserable and lonely without Jesus. And so now he's using this giant platform that he has to bring Jesus to the world. And he's having like Kanye West services, which are like non-denominational church services. And like as Catholics, we're like, okay man, you're missing the Eucharist, we'll get you there. But to bring the good out of there, like to show, because right now young people, they see my brother and they see these artists and they're like, I want that. It's attainable. Ninja beat all the odds. There was no professional gamer. Now there's tons of them. So I can do it too. And they do it for the fame and for the money. And we all know that leaves us lacking. And so there's these good examples in their culture that are showing them that that's not what true happiness is, that only Jesus can give us true happiness. And the last one I'll mention is Chance the Rapper. So Chance the Rapper just was on the Ellen Show, and I don't know if you maybe saw a clip of it on Facebook, but it was the most awkward, great 5 minutes I've watched on TV in a long time. Ellen keeps asking him questions about his life, and he's Chance the Rapper, he's from Chicago. And again, I am not recommending Chance the Rapper's music necessarily, because sometimes he does use foul language, but he also does rap about Jesus, and he's not afraid to talk about Jesus. It's very interesting. But he's an incredible dude, and he's doing tons for the inner city of Chicago. And he's on Ellen, and Ellen's like, oh, I'm so glad that you have a new baby, this is great. And what's her name? And he's like, oh, praise Jesus that I have this new baby. It really is all about Jesus. And Ellen's like, so what's her name? Like, it's so funny. And then like through the middle of the video, she says something again, and he's just like, I just want to say that the reason that you might think I'm a good person, it really is because of Jesus. Because if without him, I wouldn't know how to love God, I wouldn't know how to love my neighbor, I wouldn't know how to do this. And Ellen's just sitting there just like, okay. Great, and Chance is just bringing it. And every one of the people, like those people that I've just mentioned, every young person, and even not necessarily just young people, know who these people are, and to bring that good out in their culture instead of condemning it, which a lot of times I do or we can do, is huge and speaks volumes to them. And the last part, number 5, is use media throughout your ministry and use it well. So use media throughout your ministry and use it well. The parish websites. My favorite parish website. If your parish website is not ideal, there's a program called Wix. I highly recommend using it, W-I-X. It's user-friendly, and whatever your website might look like now, unless it's new and awesome, Wix will make it better, and they'll help you with it and invest in it. But our website is so important, not just for young people. When I go travel with my wife, and maybe some of you can relate, when I go travel with my wife and I'm like, all right, we're downtown Chicago, or what church are we going to go to? I literally type in Catholic churches near me, and I click the website, and I choose where I'm going based on the website every single time. And people are doing that when they move. And then when they move, they could be parishioners. So the website is the first thing they see, especially for young people who make a decision within seconds about whether or not they're going to go to something. And not just the landing page, which better have Mass times on it, and big bold on the front, because that's all people really care about. But to also have like the pages that they land on for their particular ministry to be super like catchy to the eye. Less information is better. Right? Like we just get the email on there and a phone, like get in contact with them. So many times in the Catholic Church, we're like, I have to put all the rules for confirmation, all the requirements for First Communion. Everything needs to be perfectly laid out for that one parent who calls and asks. But it's better to have a conversation with that parent than get into a giant email about what's going on. And so less is more, and make it visibly attractive. It isn't so hard, and it's definitely worth investing in. There's places out there that'll create a whole new website for you for just $1,000. Why it's so cheap nowadays? Because there's websites that are drag and click. Like so Wix is an example, but you can literally just drag and click and see, and they'll give you even pre-done websites that look a lot better than most websites. But it's huge. I won't go too much into the website, but it is important. So social media with your church, not our personal ones, but the church ones, simplify. A lot of churches I've noticed will have a parish Facebook page, and a parish religious education Facebook page, and a parish life team Facebook page, and a parish, adult ministry Facebook page. Just have one Facebook page, have a good parish, and inundate with awesome stuff and posts and pictures from events, so that people see, oh my goodness, there's stuff happening here, all over the place for everybody, and they'll share it and they'll see it. Same thing goes for Instagram. I think every parish 1000% should have an Instagram. There's apps like Remind where you can text someone, things like that. Those are all good. If you just get your whole parish to follow your Instagram or your Facebook page and say this is where most of the information is going to be, reminders about nights, life nights, youth ministry nights, senior luncheons, anything that you're doing, they'll check it and they'll know what to do. What about, like, websites are hard to update sometimes. So what if it snows and you're going to close something? Check our Instagram. Check our Instagram. Download Instagram, check it, and you put it as a story done in 2 seconds. You don't have to edit anything. So definitely have a parish Instagram, and just one. I would say there's one exception. Totally cool to have a youth ministry Instagram if it's run well. Okay, if it's allowed to be separate from the parish, if it's run well. We can talk more about it at lunch if you want to talk about how to run one well, and I'm not assuming you don't know. I already said less is more. Take photos of everything and share it. Again, so important. My pastor is all over me about this, and it's wild. He's like, we just had this many people at Alpha. Take a picture and share it. 150 middle schoolers showed up to our first session tonight. Take a picture and share it. And show the church the good news that's happening. And I'm like, it's not about the numbers. And he's like, but sometimes it is. Share it. And I'm like, okay, fine, I'll share it. So take photos of everything and share it. And then one last kind of thing with social media is you can summarize every event you do in a quick video of your face talking, or someone else who might be more comfortable doing that, in an Instagram story or on Facebook or on Twitter. So for instance, if you we just had a senior citizen luncheon, which I'll talk a little more about in the afternoon. The afternoon I'll be spending some time talking about how to build authentic communities for all ages. And because that is the end goal of evangelization, right? Digital evangelization is to bring them into relationship with Jesus and relationship with neighbor, and relationship with neighbor is community. And so we'll talk about a lot of practical stuff we can do for all ages in ministry in the afternoon. But it's something as simple as we had a senior luncheon recently where all senior citizens were invited. We packed the house. We had to turn people away who RSVP'd, and people who showed up because we didn't want to turn them away had to eat like near the church. It was very weird. But we had a pastor or a priest give a talk about scripture and the theology of aging. And it's as simple as having him have a 30-second summary of what his talk was at the end and putting it on Facebook and sharing it on Instagram. And you will not believe how many people ask for the full video after that and are going to come to the next senior luncheon. So now we're going to have to move it to the gym, which is not ideal. but that's okay. So those are just 5 practical tips, 5 practical ways you can evangelize using media. I would like to, we are going to have time for discussion in the afternoon, I promise, because lunch is coming up, right? Yeah. Okay, so we're going to have time for discussion, but I wanted to end this part. This is so big, guys. This guy's name is John Christ. If you don't know him, you should. He is a hilarious Protestant comedian. Yeah, he does Catholic events as well, and those are even better because he doesn't understand the Catholic Church. And so when he asks questions to the audience, it is just amazing. He's like, "Y'all baptize infants, right?" And the crowd's like, "Yup." He's like, "Yeah, that's weird. Okay, that's weird." It's just so funny because we laugh at ourselves. But here is just a quick video that I want to kind of close with because it's another way we can use digital media to evangelize because it's funny and we can laugh at ourselves. You're welcome. Go.
All right, volunteers, gather around. VBS this year is very important to the mission of this church. Pay special attention to each one of these children because their families could be future giving members of this church. Let's Vacation Bible School. It's pretty much like 5 hours of unsupervised time at the park, except everything now has to have a spiritual tie-in. You want to go climb a tree? We call that Zacchaeus looking for the Lord. Simon says, yeah, not here. Like Jesus says. I volunteer for this church for 14 hours a day, and I have to eat the same ham sandwich and juice boxes the rest of these kids. This is ridiculous. Oh, you want to go play freeze tag? I renamed it. Now it's called Lot's Wife after looking back at Sodom and Gomorrah tag. We'll see whether it's going to cooperate today. If it doesn't, we will go inside and watch VeggieTales. Oh, gather around, kids. It's time for my favorite part of the day. Dodgeball. This is a game that I'm playing. You better believe it. Each one of these 7 balls here represents one of the 7 deadly sins. You better watch out for wrath, because I'm coming. Hurry up. There's other kids waiting. Okay, kids, here's our next fun game. This one's called Foursquare. Well, a lot of people call it Foursquare because that makes the most sense, but not at VBS. We call this one Father, Son, Holy Spirit, and you. Let's get it started. 1 person on the monkey bars at once. I have to do absolutely everything at this VBS. Yesterday, I let the youth interns lead music time. They played Cardi B. The tax collectors are making money moves? Absolutely not. Hey kids, time to line up. We're headed back to church for arts and crafts time. It's just some old pipe cleaners we found in the nursery and maybe some popsicle sticks. We'll give them a glue gun, see if they can make Noah's Ark. Fantastic. We have one rule out here at the park, kids, and that's do not look inside the volunteer library. There's Harry Potter in there, and that is witchcraft. Go to our church. I haven't seen any of these kids before. Also, we need a sermon series on discipline because these kids are out of control. This close with some of these kids. Nap time is going to be 5 hours today. Vacation Bible School. You know what we should call it? Moms dropping their kids off at church for the morning so they can go to yoga and brunch.
So good, right? Follow on Instagram. He's absolutely wild. Let's pray. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord, thank you for gathering everyone in this room and for the gifts of everyone here. Thank you for calling us to ministry. Help us to believe that you're still calling us and to be your hands and feet to all the people that we will encounter. We ask that you help anything from this morning that you need us to hear, to stick, to help us to bring as many people as we can to you, regardless of if we work with young people or people above the age of 18 all the way to 150. We ask that you give us the grace to continue to bring as many people to your heart, to help them love you, but more importantly, to help us all believe that you love us. I ask that you bless the food that we're about to eat. Maybe there's already a prayer for that, so I won't say it. And we ask that you be with us the rest of this day. Amen. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. Thank you, guys.